The silver ship moved slowly through space toward the third planet from the yellow star. Inside the ship, Zefkar checked his instruments one more time. His forearms moved quickly across the control panel while his large black eyes studied the readings. Everything looked normal for a Class 12 death world. "Are you sure about this?" asked his assistant Velinara. Her green skin had turned pale with worry. No intelligent life has ever survived on a Class 12 world before. Zefkar nodded his large head. "The radio signals are real. Someone down there is using technology we have to investigate." The Galactic Council had been receiving strange radio transmissions from this system for over 50 rotations. The signals showed signs of intelligence, but that seemed impossible. Every computer model said that life could not survive on the third planet. The atmosphere contained deadly oxygen gas. The surface temperature changed by huge amounts. Massive storms covered the planet regularly. No civilized species could live in such conditions, but the signals kept coming. Jake Morrison floated inside the space station, looking out at the stars. He had been the station commander for 6 months now. It was a good job, even if it got lonely. Sometimes. Earth looked beautiful from up here, all blue and white and green. Hard to believe some people thought it was a dangerous place to live. The communication system beeped. Jake pushed off from the wall and floated over to the control panel. The message that appeared on his screen made him stop breathing for a moment. "This is Jake Morrison on the International Space Station. Please repeat your last message." The voice that answered was strange. It sounded like it was coming through water, with odd clicks and whistles mixed in, but the words were clear enough. "Greetings, survivor beings of the third planet. This is research vessel Harmony of Peace from the Galactic Council. We request meeting to discuss your remarkable survival." Jake's hands shook as he opened the emergency communication channel to Earth. This was it. First contact with aliens. And they were calling human survivors. Dr. Lisa Grand was eating lunch in her office at the Space Research Center when her phone rang. She almost choked on her sandwich when Jake Morrison's voice came through the speaker. "Dr. Grant, you need to get down here right now. We have visitors." 20 minutes later, Lisa was staring at the alien transmission on her computer screen. The message was simple but confusing. The aliens wanted to meet on the moon. They said it would be neutral, ground, and safer than the surface of the death world. "Death world?" Lisa said out loud. "They're calling Earth a death world?" She called together her team of scientists and linguists. Within hours, they had prepared a response. Earth would send 2 representatives to meet the aliens on the moon in 3 days. Jake Morrison would go as the military representative, and Lisa would go as the science representative. The aliens seemed pleased with this plan. They sent detailed instructions about where to meet and what safety equipment to bring. Their messages kept mentioning extreme danger and protective protocols. Lisa found this strange. The moon landing would be routine for human technology. 3 days later, Jake and Lisa sat in their lunar landing craft, watching the alien ship approach. It was beautiful, made of some kind of metal that seemed to change color in the sunlight. It was also huge, at least 10 times bigger than their small craft. "Think they're friendly?" Jake asked. "They haven't shot at us yet," Lisa replied. That's a good sign." The alien ship landed about 100 meters away. Jake and Lisa put on their standard spacesuits and prepared to exit their craft. Through the helmet radio, they could hear the aliens talking to each other in their strange language. The universal translator that the aliens had provided was working, but the conversation was confusing. "Are you certain the beings can survive outside their craft?" "The scans show they have some kind of primitive protective covering. But the radiation levels. No intelligent species should be able to tolerate this environment." Jake and Lisa stepped out onto the moon's surface. The low gravity made walking easy, just like in their training. They had done this kind of thing dozens of times. The alien ship opened with a hiss of escaping gas. 3 figures emerged, but they looked nothing like the humans had expected. They were wearing environmental suits that seemed designed for the worst possible conditions. The suits were thick and bulky, with multiple layers of protection. Lights flashed on the suits constantly, and Lisa could see multiple backup systems built into each one. The aliens moved very slowly and carefully, as if they expected the ground to explode under their feet. It took them almost 10 minutes to cross the 100 meters between the ships. "Greetings, brave survivors," said the lead alien. His voice came through the translator with a tone of amazement. "I am Zefkar, xenobiologist of the Galactic Council. These are my colleagues Velinara and Crixtel. We are impressed by your courage in meeting us in such a dangerous location." Jake looked around at the familiar moon surface. "Dangerous? This is pretty routine for us." The three aliens stopped, walking. Even through their thick suits, Jake and Lisa could see their surprise. "Routine?" Velinara's voice was high with shock. "You consider exposure to hard vacuum and intense radiation to be routine?" "Well, yeah," Lisa said. "We do this kind of thing all the time. Spacewalks, moon landings, asteroid missions. It's part of our job." Crixtel made a sound that the translator couldn't interpret. "Asteroid missions? You voluntarily travel to asteroid fields?" "Sure, we mine them sometimes. Great source of rare metals." The aliens stood very still for a long moment. Jake wondered if something was wrong with their translation equipment. Finally, Zefkar spoke again. "Perhaps we should begin our discussion. We have traveled here to study your species because our instruments indicate that you have achieved technological civilization on a Class 12 Deathworld." "This should be impossible." "Deathworld?" Lisa asked. "You keep using that word. What exactly do you mean?" Zefkar activated a device on his suit. A holographic display appeared in the space between them, showing Earth from orbit. But this wasn't the beautiful blue and green planet that Jake and Lisa knew. The display showed Earth as a hellish nightmare, with red warnings covering almost every surface. "Your planet registers extreme danger levels in 47 different categories," Zefkar explained. "The atmosphere contains 21% oxygen, which is highly toxic to most life forms. The surface temperature varies by over 100 degrees between seasons. Massive storms regularly devastate large areas. Seismic activity threatens all surface structures. Solar radiation levels are lethal without protection." Jake and Lisa looked at each other. This sounded like a completely different planet. "The gravitational field is unusually strong," Velinara added. "Most species would be crushed by the constant pressure, and the magnetic field fluctuations would disrupt most electronic systems." "But that's just normal weather," Lisa said. "I mean, yeah, we get storms sometimes, and earthquakes happen, but people deal with it. We build stronger houses, we have weather prediction systems, we adapt." "Adapt?" Crixtel's voice was faint. "You adapt to Class 12 Deathworld conditions? What do you call a normal planet?" Jake asked. The holographic display changed to show another world. This one was covered in gentle, rolling hills under a calm, pink sky. No storms were visible. No weather at all, really. The surface looked perfectly smooth and peaceful. "This is Velinara's homeworld," Zefkar said. "Temperature varies by only 2 degrees annually. No dangerous weather, stable geology, filtered radiation, breathable atmosphere for most species." "Looks kind of boring," Jake said without thinking. The three aliens made sounds that the translator labeled as incomprehensible emotional distress. "Boring?" Velinara whispered. "A safe, stable environment is boring?" "Well, where's the challenge?" Lisa asked. "How do you grow as a species if everything is easy?" "We grow through education and peaceful cooperation," Zefkar said slowly. "Not through survival of environmental disasters." "But disasters make you stronger," Jake said. "They teach you to work together, to solve problems, to build better technology. Some of our greatest advances came from dealing with natural disasters." The aliens were quiet for a long time. Finally, Zefkar spoke again. "We request permission to study your planet more closely. Your species appears to have developed capabilities that we do not understand. You treat as normal what we consider lethal. You find excitement where we see only death." "Sure," Lisa said. "We'd love to show you around Earth, but I should warn you, If you think the moon is dangerous, you're really not going to like our planet. We will bring extensive protective equipment, Velinara said quickly. You might want to bring extra, Jake added helpfully. We're heading into storm season. The sound the aliens made this time didn't translate at all. Dr. Kevin Phillips stood in the desert sand, watching the alien ship land with a cloud of dust and noise. The morning sun was already hot, and he could feel sweat starting to form under his wide-brimmed hat. Next to him, Dr. Amy Foster checked her equipment one more time. They had been chosen to give the aliens their first real tour of Earth, and both scientists were excited about the chance. The alien ship was even more impressive up close. It looked like it had been built to survive a war with thick armor plating, and multiple backup systems visible on the outside. Steam hissed from cooling vents as the ship settled onto the desert floor. They really don't take chances, do they? Amy said, pointing at the ship's heavy construction. Can you blame them? Kevin replied. According to their scans, we're standing in the middle of a wasteland that should have killed us already. The ship's door opened with a loud mechanical sound. 3 figures emerged, but they looked very different from the aliens who had met. Jake and Lisa on the moon. These suits were even thicker and more complex. Each alien wore what looked like a personal tank, complete with tracks instead of legs and mechanical arms for handling dangerous materials. Zefkar's voice came through, the radio with obvious strain. Greetings, Dr. Phillips and Dr. Foster. We have landed in what our instruments indicate is the least dangerous region of your planet. However, our sensors are detecting numerous signs of active biological contamination. Kevin looked around at the Sahara Desert. Sand stretched in all directions under the clear blue sky. A few small plants grew near some rocks about 50 meters away. It was one of the most peaceful places on Earth. Contamination? He asked. What kind of contamination? Our instruments detect multiple life forms in the immediate area, Velinara's voice was tight with worry. Parasitic organisms, toxic plant matter, and several unidentified biological signatures. How are you surviving without protective gear? Amy walked over to the small plants and knelt down next to them. You mean these? They're just desert flowers. Pretty harmless, actually. She reached out and touched one of the bright yellow blooms. The 3 aliens made sounds of alarm and backed away quickly. Their mechanical suits whirred and clicked as emergency systems activated. Dr. Foster, please step away from the aggressive plant matter immediately. Crixtel's voice was close to panic. Our scans indicate those organisms produce toxic compounds and have developed aggressive survival mechanisms. Amy looked confused. Aggressive? These are just wildflowers. They're actually quite delicate. To prove her point, she picked one and held it up. The flower was small and pretty, with soft petals that moved gently in the desert breeze. The aliens retreated even further. Warning lights flashed on their suits. The organism is now in direct contact with your skin, Zefkar said. You must seek immediate medical attention. Toxic plant contact is fatal to most known species. It's really not dangerous, Kevin said, walking over to join Amy. Desert plants are actually quite remarkable. They've adapted to survive in conditions that would kill most other plants. Very little water, extreme temperatures, poor soil. They're tough but not harmful. He pointed to a small cactus growing near the flowers. Now that plant is a bit more defensive. It has spines to protect itself from being eaten. But even that won't seriously hurt you unless you're really careless. The aliens' translator systems seemed to struggle with the word adapted. They exchanged rapid conversation in their own language before Zefkar spoke again. You said the plants adapted to survive extreme conditions. This implies they were not originally designed for this environment. Exactly, Amy said, getting excited. Evolution is amazing. Life finds ways to survive in the most difficult places. Desert plants developed water storage, protective coatings, deep root systems. They turned a hostile environment into a home. But why would they not simply relocate to a more suitable environment? Velinara asked. Kevin and Amy looked at each other. The question seemed so strange. Because this is their environment? Kevin said slowly. They evolved here. This is what they're designed for now. Moving somewhere else would actually be harder for them. The aliens were quiet for several minutes. Their suits continued to flash warning lights and make worried beeping sounds. Perhaps we should move to a safer location, Zefkar finally said. Our instruments indicate there is a large body of chemical solution nearby. We assume this is a contaminated zone, but it may be less biologically active. Kevin grinned. You mean the oasis? That's actually more alive than here, but sure, let's go take a look. The group moved slowly across the sand. The aliens tracked. Suits left deep marks in the desert floor, while Kevin and Amy walked easily in their hiking boots. It took 20 minutes to reach the small oasis, partly because the aliens kept stopping to scan every rock and plant they encountered. When they reached the water, the aliens stopped completely. This cannot be correct, Crickstel said. Our instruments indicate this chemical solution contains massive quantities of biological matter. Bacteria, plant matter, animal waste products, dissolved minerals. Contact with this substance should cause immediate death. Amy knelt down by the water's edge and cupped some in her hands. The water was clear and cool, with a few small fish visible swimming near the bottom. This is fresh water. It's perfectly safe to drink. She took a sip to prove her point. All three aliens activated emergency protocols. Lights flashed, alarms sounded, and their suits sealed completely. Dr. Foster has been contaminated, Velenar announced. We must call for immediate medical evacuation. I'm fine, Amy laughed. This is just water. All life on Earth needs water to survive. We drink it, we swim in it, we use it for everything. You swim in the chemical solution? Zefkar's voice was faint. Sure, it's fun. Amy pulled off her shoes and socks and waded into the shallow water. Small fish swam around her feet, and water plants swayed gently in the current. The aliens watched in horror as Amy splashed water on her face and arms. To them, she was deliberately contaminating herself with a toxic chemical soup that contained countless hostile organisms. The life forms in the solution, Crickstel said weakly. They are not attacking you. Why would they attack me? Amy asked. We're all just trying to live. The fish eat plants and insects. The plants use sunlight and water. I'm way too big to be food for anything here, and I'm not competing with them for resources. Kevin sat down on a rock near the water's edge. This is called an ecosystem. All the different life forms work together, in a way. They found ways to coexist and even help each other. But our instruments detect constant biological warfare, Velenara protested. Chemical weapons, physical attacks, territorial disputes? Well, yeah, there's competition, Kevin admitted. Plants compete for sunlight and water. Animals compete for food and mates. But that competition actually makes the whole system stronger and more stable. Competition makes systems stronger? Zefkar asked. This contradicts all known principles of civilized development. Amy waded back to shore and sat down to put her shoes back on. Think about it this way. If everything was easy, nothing would need to develop new abilities. But when resources are limited, life gets creative. Plants develop better ways to find water. Animals develop better hunting techniques. Everyone gets stronger and smarter. But what about cooperation? Crickstel asked. Surely civilized beings must work together peacefully. Oh, we do that too, Kevin said. But we cooperate in order to compete better. Humans work together to solve problems that none of us could handle alone. And other species do the same thing. He pointed to a small tree growing near the water. See that tree? It's working with fungi in the soil. The fungi help the tree's roots absorb water and nutrients. In return, the tree gives the fungi sugar from its leaves. They're both stronger together than they would be alone. But this is still competition-based cooperation, Zefkar said slowly. You cooperate in order to survive better in a hostile environment. Exactly, Amy said. And because the environment is challenging, we've had to get really good at cooperation. Humans work together on projects that would be impossible for individuals. We share knowledge, resources, technology. We take care of each other during disasters. Disasters make you more cooperative? Velinara asked. Usually, yes. When things get really bad, people come together to help. We're social animals. We survive better in groups. Kevin stood up and brushed sand off his pants. Should we head to the ocean next? That's where you can really see how complex Earth's ecosystems get. The aliens exchanged rapid conversation in their own language. Even through the translators, Kevin and Amy could hear the panic in their voices. The ocean, Zefkar said finally, contains even more biological contamination than this small water source? Oh, much more, Amy said cheerfully. The ocean is full of life. Billions of different species, from tiny bacteria to massive whales. It's the most complex ecosystem on the planet. And you wish to take us there voluntarily? Crickstel asked. Well, you did say you wanted to study Earth life, Kevin pointed out. The ocean is where most of it lives. Perhaps, Zefkar said very carefully, we should call for additional protective equipment first. Probably a good idea, Amy agreed. Some of the marine life is actually dangerous to humans. Sharks, jellyfish, toxic algae. Don Miller checked his climbing gear one more time before starting up the rock face. The morning sun felt good on his back, and the granite wall in front of him looked perfect for climbing. He had been planning this trip to Yosemite for months, and the weather was exactly right. What he didn't know was that 3 alien researchers were watching him through high-powered telescopes from their ship hidden behind a nearby mountain. Subject is approaching the vertical rock formation, Zefkar said into his recording device. Preliminary scans indicate the structure is unstable and prone to collapse. Subject appears to be conducting some form of military reconnaissance. Perhaps. It is a religious ritual, suggested Velinara. Many primitive species perform dangerous ceremonies to prove worthiness to their gods. The subject is now making direct contact with the rock face, Crickstel reported. He appears to be climbing it, using only his natural appendages. Through their telescopes, they watched Dan find his first handhold and pull himself up off the ground. His movements were smooth and confident, like someone who had done this thousands of times before. This must be elite military training, Zefkar decided. No civilized being would attempt such an action for recreational purposes. Don was about 50 feet up the wall when he paused to rest. He looked around at the beautiful valley spread out below him, feeling the familiar rush of excitement that came with free climbing. This was what he lived for. The challenge, the focus, the pure joy of moving through vertical space using nothing but skill and strength. Subject has stopped moving, Velinara observed, possibly experiencing system failure. Due to stress. No, wait, Crickstel said. He appears to be enjoying the view. His stress indicators are actually decreasing. That's impossible, Zefkar muttered. He's in a class of death scenario. His stress levels should be at maximum. Dan continued climbing, working his way up a particularly challenging section of rock. His fingers found tiny cracks and ledges that looked impossible to use. His feet moved with careful precision, testing each step before committing his weight. The aliens watched in growing amazement as Dan solved problem after problem, finding ways to move up rock that their computers said was unclimbable. When he reached a difficult overhang, he hung by his fingertips for several minutes, studying the rock above him and planning his next moves. The subject is now suspended over a 200-foot drop, Crickstel reported. He appears to be thinking? Velinara's voice was high with stress. In a life-or-death situation, he's stopping to think. Human neural activity is actually increasing, Zefkar said, checking his scanners. Brain function is enhanced, not impaired by the extreme danger. Dan found his route and continued upward. The overhang required him to climb upside down for several moves, his body hanging out over empty space while he worked his way across the ceiling of rock. When he finally pulled himself up over the lip, he was grinning with pure happiness. Subject has survived the death trap, Crickstel announced. He is displaying signs of pleasure? That can't be right, Velinara said. Check the emotional scanners again, Readings are confirmed. The subject is experiencing joy, satisfaction, and increased energy levels. His body is producing chemicals associated with happiness and well-being. The aliens fell silent as Don continued climbing. By midday, he had reached the top of the route, over 1,000 feet above the valley floor. He sat on the summit, eating a sandwich and drinking water, looking completely relaxed. "Dr. Barnes," Zefker called to their human liaison through the communication system, "we need immediate consultation regarding the subject's behavior." Dr. Rachel Barnes was waiting at the base of the cliff with her research team. She had been studying extreme sports psychology for 15 years, but explaining human behavior to aliens was a new challenge. "What seems to be the problem?" she asked. "The human subject has just completed what our computers classify as an impossible survival scenario," Zefker explained. "He did this voluntarily without coercion or obvious necessity, and he appears to have enjoyed the experience." Rachel looked up at Don, who was starting his descent down a different route. "Oh, that's just free climbing. Don does this every weekend?" "It's his hobby." "Hobby," all three aliens said at once. "You know, something he does for fun, recreation. A lot of humans enjoy challenging physical activities. He deliberately seeks out life-threatening situations for entertainment?" Velanara asked weakly. "Well, when you put it like that, it sounds kind of extreme," Rachel admitted. "But from our perspective, it's just a fun way to spend time outdoors. Good exercise, beautiful scenery, mental challenge." "Mental challenge?" Crickstell repeated. The subject's mind was operating at enhanced levels during the death scenario. "Exactly. That's part of what makes it enjoyable. Your brain has to work perfectly. You have to be completely focused, completely present. Some people find that very satisfying." Rachel walked over to her equipment and pulled up some video footage on her tablet. "Let me show you some other popular human recreational activities." The first video showed people jumping out of an airplane. The aliens watched in horror as humans fell through the sky at terminal velocity, their faces showing obvious signs of joy and excitement. "This is called skydiving," Rachel explained. "About 3 million people do this every year, just for fun. They deliberately exit a functional aircraft at lethal altitude." Zefkar's voice was barely a whisper. "The parachutes work very reliably," Rachel said. "It's actually quite safe, statistically speaking." The next video showed deep-sea diving. Humans with breathing equipment swam down into dark water, surrounded by marine life that the aliens' computers identified as dangerous predators. "This is scuba diving. People explore underwater environments, sometimes going down several hundred feet. Great way to see marine life up close." "They enter the toxic ocean environment voluntarily?" Velanara asked. "And approach the predatory organisms? Most sea life isn't actually dangerous to humans. Sharks, for instance, rarely attack people. You're more likely to be struck by lightning than killed by a shark." The aliens processed this information with difficulty. On their worlds, any activity with non-zero mortality risk was heavily regulated or banned entirely. Rachel showed them more videos. Whitewater rafting, where humans rode flimsy boats through violent rapids. Rock climbing competitions, where people competed to see who could climb the most difficult routes. Base jumping, where people leaped off cliffs and buildings with tiny parachutes. "Why?" Zefker finally asked. "Why do humans seek out these dangerous activities?" "Lots of reasons," Rachel said, settling into her favorite topic. "There's the adrenaline rush, the sense of accomplishment, the physical challenge. Many people say it makes them feel more alive." "More alive?" Crickstell asked. "When you're in a challenging situation, your body and mind work at peak efficiency. All your senses are heightened. You feel completely engaged with the world around you. Some people become addicted to that feeling." "Addicted to mortal danger?" Velanara's voice was faint. "Not the danger itself, but the way danger makes you feel. The confidence you gain from overcoming challenges. The trust you build with your climbing partner or your diving buddy. The way it teaches you what you're really capable of." Rachel pulled up another video, this one showing a marathon. Thousands of people running 26.2 miles through city streets. many of them looking exhausted and in pain but still pushing forward. This is a marathon. These people are running until their bodies start to break down, and they keep running anyway. Most of them aren't competing to win. They just want to prove to themselves that they can do it. The aliens watched the footage in silence. Near the end of the race, they could see runners helping each other, sharing water, encouraging strangers to keep going. They help each other even while competing? Krikstal asked. Oh yeah, that's common in endurance sports. Everyone's fighting the same battle against their own limits. There's a lot of mutual respect and support. But why inflict such stress on their bodies voluntarily? Zefkar asked. Because overcoming that stress makes you stronger, Rachel explained. Not just physically, but mentally and emotionally. People who finish marathons often say it changed how they think about what's possible in their lives. Don had finished his descent and was walking over to join them. He looked tired but happy, coiling his climbing rope with practiced efficiency. Great climb today, he said to Rachel. Perfect weather, good rock. Felt like dancing up there. Then, these are the alien researchers I told you about, Rachel said. They're trying to understand why humans enjoy dangerous activities. Dan looked at the three heavily armored aliens with their tracked suits and multiple backup systems. You guys seem pretty serious about safety. We do not understand your species' relationship with danger, Zefkar said carefully. You appear to seek out situations that would be lethal to most intelligent life. Don thought about this for a moment. I guess we just see it differently. Yeah, climbing can be dangerous if you're careless or unprepared. But with good technique and proper equipment, it's really not that risky. And the rewards are incredible. What rewards? Velanara asked. The feeling of moving through vertical space using just your body and mind. Colonel Frank Rogers stood on the edge of the military training field, watching a group of young recruits crawl through mud under barbed wire while drill sergeants shouted at them. It was a typical Tuesday morning at Fort Campbell, but today, he had very unusual observers. 3 alien researchers sat in their mobile observation unit, which looked like a small tank with windows. Their instruments were working constantly, measuring stress levels, environmental hazards, and what they kept calling systematic torture indicators. Colonel Rogers, Zefkar's voice came through the communication system, we must protest these training methods. Our instruments indicate the young humans are being subjected to deliberate physical and psychological trauma. Frank looked at the obstacle course where 18-year-old volunteers were pushing themselves through challenges designed to build strength, endurance, and teamwork. The recruits were muddy, tired, and working hard, but they were also laughing and encouraging each other. This is just basic training, Frank explained. These kids volunteered for military service. We're teaching them the skills they need to survive in dangerous situations. But the stress levels we're detecting would hospitalize most galactic species, Velanara protested. And you're inflicting this on your youngest adult members? Actually, humans this age are at peak physical condition, Frank said. They recover quickly from stress, they learn fast, and they adapt well to new challenges. It's the perfect time to push their limits. Through their instruments, the aliens watched the recruits complete the obstacle course and move on to combat training. They observed humans learning to fight with weapons, practicing battlefield medicine, and studying tactics for operating in hostile environments. This appears to be preparation for warfare, Krikstal observed. But our intelligence, reports indicate your species is not currently engaged in major conflicts. That's right, Frank agreed. Most of our military operations these days are peacekeeping, disaster relief, and humanitarian missions. But we train for the worst-case scenarios. Dr. Patricia Hayes arrived at the training field in her Jeep, carrying a briefcase full of psychological evaluation equipment. She had been studying military psychology for 20 years, and the chance to explain human military behavior to aliens was fascinating. Dr. Hayes, Zefkar called as she approached. We require immediate clarification. These young humans appear to be voluntarily subjecting themselves to combat preparation, even though no immediate threat exists. Patricia set up her equipment and began reviewing the data the aliens had collected. That's correct. Military service is voluntary in most human societies. These recruits chose to be here. But why? Velanara asked. What could motivate intelligent beings to seek out training for violent conflict? Lots of reasons, Patricia sighed, pulling up psychological profiles on her tablet. Some join for education benefits, some for career opportunities, some because they want to serve their country. Many are attracted to the challenge and the chance to be part of something bigger than themselves. The aliens watched as the training continued. Recruits were learning to work as teams, solving problems under pressure, and supporting each other through difficult challenges. Despite the stress and physical demands, the humans showed remarkable cooperation and mutual support. We're observing pack-bonding behavior, Crickstell noted. The stress appears to be strengthening social connections rather than breaking them down. Exactly, Patricia said. Shared hardship creates very strong emotional bonds. Soldiers who train together often develop friendships that last their entire lives. They learn to trust each other completely. Commander Bill Torres joined the group, still wearing his Navy SEAL training gear. He had just finished a survival exercise with his advanced training class, and he looked tired but satisfied. Commander Torres leads our most elite military unit, Frank explained to the aliens. His teams are trained to operate in the most dangerous environments on Earth. Define most dangerous, Zefka requested. Bill thought for a moment. Well, we train for operations in Arctic conditions, desert environments, underwater missions, high-altitude insertions, urban warfare zones. Basically anywhere humans might need to go to help people or complete a mission. You train to operate in multiple Class 12 Deathworld environments simultaneously? Villanora's voice was very quiet. I guess you could put it that way, Bill said. We practice surviving without equipment, finding food and water in hostile terrain, treating injuries with limited medical supplies. Last week my team spent 3 days in the swamp with nothing but knives and basic gear. For how long can your personnel survive in these conditions? Crickstell asked. Depends on the environment and the situation, Bill replied. In temperate conditions with some resources, a well-trained human can survive indefinitely. In extreme environments like Arctic or desert, maybe weeks or months if they know what they're doing. The aliens exchanged rapid conversation in their own language. Even through the translators, Patricia could hear the stress in their voices. These capabilities seem to exceed what would be necessary for defensive purposes, Zefkar said carefully. Oh, we're not just defensive, Frank said. Human military forces project power globally. We can deliver personnel and equipment to any location on Earth within hours. Our logistics networks can support operations anywhere, in any environment. But surely this is for protection of your own territory? Velanara asked. Sometimes, Bill admitted. But a lot of our missions are humanitarian. Disaster relief, medical assistance, evacuation operations. When earthquakes or storms hit, military forces are usually the first ones on the scene. Patricia pulled up historical data on her tablet. You might find this interesting. Some of humanity's greatest technological advances came from military research. Aviation, communications, medicine, computing. The stress of conflict has driven innovation in ways that peaceful societies never achieve. Conflict drives technological advancement? Crickstell asked. Not just conflict, but any kind of extreme challenge, Patricia explained. When humans face problems that could kill them, they become incredibly creative about finding solutions. The more desperate the situation, the more innovative the response. She showed them data about medical advances that came from battlefield. Surgery, navigation systems developed for military use, and communication technologies that started as military projects. World War II, for instance, produced massive advances in radar, jet engines, computers, and nuclear physics. The space program grew out of military rocket development. The Internet started as a military communication system. So warfare makes your species more technologically advanced? Zefkar asked slowly. Any kind of life or death challenge does, Frank corrected. Natural disasters, disease outbreaks, resource shortages. Humans get really smart really fast when survival is on the line. Bill nodded in agreement. That's why we train under stress. Combat is the ultimate problem-solving exercise. You have to think clearly, adapt quickly, and work with your team to overcome obstacles that could kill you. There's no better way to develop mental toughness. The aliens watched as a new group of recruits began their training. These humans were learning to operate in simulated chemical weapon environments, wearing protective gear and practicing decontamination procedures. The recruits are training to operate in toxic atmospheric conditions, Velinara observed. Chemical, biological, and radiological threats, Frank confirmed. We prepare for every possible hazard, even exposure to radiation? Crickstell asked. Sure, nuclear accidents, dirty bombs, contaminated areas. Our hazmat teams can work in environments that would be lethal to unprotected humans. Patricia looked at the alien data readings and noticed something interesting. Your stress indicators are off the charts just from observing our training. How do your species handle dangerous situations? We avoid them, Zephyr said simply. Galactic civilization is built on the principle of minimizing risk. Dangerous activities are automated or eliminated entirely. But what happens when you encounter unavoidable threats? Bill asked. Natural disasters, equipment failures, hostile environments. The aliens were quiet for a long time. We request assistance from species with appropriate capabilities, Velinara finally admitted. And until now, no species had the capabilities to handle truly dangerous environments, Crickstell added. Frank began to understand. You're saying that humans are the first species you've encountered that can actually operate in hostile conditions? Not just operate, Zefkar said quietly. Thrive. Your species treats as routine what we consider impossible survival scenarios. You deliberately train for situations that would destroy entire galactic civilizations. And you enjoy it, Velinara added, sounding confused. Your stress biochemistry indicates that humans actually become more effective under extreme pressure. Patricia nodded. That's the Deathworld advantage. We evolved in conditions that forced us to become adaptable, resilient, and innovative. What looks like horrible stress to you feels like an interesting challenge to us. This explains much about your technological development, Crickstell said thoughtfully. Your species has advanced farther in a few thousand years than most civilizations. Achieved in millions of years, because we had to, Bill said. Earth kept throwing problems at us that we had to solve or die. The massive assembly hall on the Galactic Council Station had never been so quiet. Representatives from 47 different civilizations sat in their specially designed seats, all attention focused on the data display at the center of the room. Zefkar stood next to the holographic projector, his forearms moving nervously as he prepared to present his findings about Earth. Honored Council members, Zefkar began. After 6 months of study, we must report that our initial classification of the third planet was completely incorrect. Earth is not simply a Class 12 death world. It is something we have never encountered before. Council leader Thexmara gestured for him to continue. Her species had evolved on a peaceful water world where the biggest natural threat was occasional rain. The idea of intelligent life surviving on a hostile planet seemed impossible to her. The beings who call themselves humans have not merely survived their environment, Zefkar continued. They have used its hostility to develop capabilities that exceed anything in our database. They are the first species we have discovered that become stronger when faced with deadly challenges. A hologram appeared showing Earth from space, but this time the danger warnings were replaced with new classifications. Instead of lethal atmospheric conditions, the display read Adaptive Environment Catalyst. Instead of extreme temperature variations, it showed Endurance Enhancement Zone. Please explain these new classifications, requested Council member. Vorthak from the Mineral Leading, species of Kepler 442b. His people had never experienced weather of any kind. Humans have developed biological and cultural adaptations that allow them to thrive in conditions that would destroy most galactic civilizations, Zefkar explained. They do not avoid environmental challenges. They seek them out deliberately to improve their capabilities. The display changed to show footage from Earth. The Council watched in stunned silence as humans engaged in activities that their computers classified as suicide attempts. Rock climbing, deep-sea diving, extreme sports, military training. Every activity looked like deliberate exposure to mortal danger. "Are we certain these beings are mentally stable?" asked Council Member Lishandra. Her species had evolved perfect safety protocols over millions of years of peaceful development. "Completely stable," Zefkar replied. "In fact, they appear to be more psychologically healthy when facing challenges. Stress and danger activate positive neurochemical responses in human brains. They literally become happier when overcoming difficult obstacles." Ambassador Julie Martinez entered the assembly hall, accompanied by a small delegation of humans. The aliens in the chamber immediately activated their emergency protective protocols. Even though they knew humans were not aggressive toward other intelligent species, their instincts screamed danger warnings when confronted with Deathworld predators. "Honored Council," Julie said, walking calmly to the center of the chamber, "thank you for allowing us to address your concerns about humanity." The fact that she was walking normally in the chamber's standard atmosphere, without any protective equipment, caused several council members to faint. Standard galactic atmosphere was a carefully balanced mixture designed to be safe for most species. For a Deathworld creature to breathe it without protection seemed impossible. "Ambassador Martinez," Bexmara said carefully, "we understand that. Your species has developed unusual capabilities. We are concerned about what your expansion into galactic space might mean for existing civilizations." Julie smiled, which showed her teeth. Several more council members activated panic protocols at the sight of obvious predator dentition. "I understand your concerns," Julie said, "but I think there might be some misunderstandings about human intentions. May I introduce some of my colleagues?" She gestured to the other humans in her delegation. "This is Dr. Steve Washington, our climate scientist. Captain Maria Rodriguez, who will command our first interstellar exploration vessel. And this is Timmy Chun. He's 10 years old." The presence of a human child in the chamber caused immediate chaos. Emergency alarms sounded. Security protocols activated. Half the council members evacuated to safe rooms. "You brought a juvenile Deathworld predator to the Galactic Council?" Vorthic's voice was high with panic. "Timmy's not a predator," Julie said calmly. "He's a kid. He likes camping, hiking, and building model spaceships. Timmy, tell the council about your last camping trip." Timmy stepped forward, completely unaware that he was terrifying some of the galaxy's most advanced civilizations. "We went to Yellowstone National Park for a week. I saw bears and wolves and geysers. Dad taught me how to start a fire without matches. It was really cool." The translation system struggled with the concept of a juvenile member of an intelligent species voluntarily entering territory controlled by large predators and sleeping outdoors in a hostile environment. The young human was exposed to dangerous fauna and toxic thermal emissions, Lishandra asked weakly. "Bears and wolves usually avoid humans," Timmy explained. "And the geysers are just hot water coming up from underground. They're not toxic. Some people even swim in the hot springs." Dr. Steve Washington stepped forward with his tablet displaying climate data. "If I may, I'd like to address the council's concerns about human environmental capabilities." He activated a holographic display showing Earth's climate history. The council watched in amazement as the data revealed ice ages, volcanic periods, mass extinction events, and asteroid impacts that should have sterilized the planet. "Earth has experienced environmental disasters that would destroy most civilizations," Steve explained. "But instead of wiping out life, these disasters drove evolution toward greater complexity and adaptability. Humans are the product of 4 billion years of survival training. But surely this has made your species violent and aggressive?" Vexmara asked. Captain Maria Rodriguez answered this question. "Actually, the opposite is true. Survival on Earth required cooperation on a massive scale. We had to learn to work together to overcome challenges that no individual could handle alone. Our greatest achievements came from millions of people collaborating on projects that seemed impossible. She showed the council images of human cities, space programs, and global communication networks. Every human technology exists because thousands of people shared knowledge and resources to solve problems. We're actually very social and cooperative. But the military capabilities we observed, Vorthak protested. Your species has developed weapons and tactics that could threaten entire star systems. We developed those capabilities to protect ourselves from our environment, Maria replied. And now we use them mainly for rescue operations, disaster relief, and humanitarian missions. When natural disasters hit Earth, our military forces save more lives than they've ever taken in combat. Julie stepped forward again. The Council seems to be worried that humans will be aggressive toward other species, but I think you're missing the real opportunity here. Opportunity? Several council members asked at once. Humans are the first species you've encountered that can survive in truly hostile environments, Julie explained. We can explore and colonize worlds that other species consider uninhabitable. We can handle emergencies and disasters that would overwhelm galactic civilization. Dr. Washington nodded in agreement. There are thousands of worlds in the galaxy that could support life but are considered too dangerous for colonization. Worlds with extreme weather, unstable geology, dangerous radiation levels. For humans, those aren't obstacles. They're just interesting challenges. Zefkar activated his display again, showing a new classification system that the research team had developed. We propose redesignating Earth-type worlds as adaptive evolution environments rather than death worlds. And we recommend establishing humans as the galaxy's first hostile environment specialists. What would this mean practically? Vixmara asked. Humans could explore and establish colonies on worlds that are currently considered uninhabitable, Maria explained. We could serve as first responders for natural disasters, environmental emergencies, and hostile world situations. We could expand the boundaries of where galactic civilization can exist. Timmy raised his hand like he was in school. Plus, we could teach other species how to handle challenging situations. My dad says that learning to deal with difficult things makes you stronger and more confident. The simple wisdom from a 10-year-old human seemed to resonate with the council more than all the scientific data they had received. The young human raises an interesting point, Lishandra said thoughtfully. Perhaps exposure to controlled challenges could benefit other species as well. We'd be happy to help, Julie said. Humans love teaching people new skills, especially fun outdoor activities. We could start with very mild challenges and work up gradually. Council leader Vexmara looked around the chamber at her fellow representatives. Many were still nervous about the human presence, but she could see curiosity beginning to replace fear. This is an unprecedented situation, she announced. We have never encountered a species that treats environmental hostility as an advantage rather than a threat. We propose a trial period of cooperation with careful monitoring and gradual integration. That sounds perfect, Julie agreed. We suggest starting with joint exploration missions to marginally hostile worlds.